Please, dear God.
Coming to you live from my cell phone.
Seriously, this hopefully this is the last live that I'm gonna be doing like this, but we have microphones and everything ready. Sorry to everyone who we had to bounce around, but thank you for joining us. Thank you for your patience. We're gonna be talking about a lot of really cool topics, so I'm excited for you guys. I'm glad you guys like pulled through to be here.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having us.
Yes. So for anyone who's new to my channel, my name is Amanda Ray, and I escaped the polygamous cult known as the Order. My dad has 3 wives. I have over 30 siblings. With those 3 wives that my dad married, his third wife is his own half sister. We'll be talking a little bit about that today. But we also have Shalise from Cults of Consciousness over here, and her mom, which I met today, which I'm so excited about.
Mama Bear.
Yeah, so if anyone's not subscribed to Cults of Consciousness, I'm gonna, after we're done with this whole episode, I'm gonna leave all the links in the description box down below. I'll also leave links to the previous videos I've made with Shalise, and you guys can go binge watch those. But we're gonna be talking about, because Shalise and her mom are from the LDS, like in Utah, right? You guys were raised
Yeah.
in the Utah culture.
Yep.
So there's a lot of similarities to my upbringing and yours because I was raised on the Joseph Smith teachings. For anyone who's new here, Joseph Smith is basically the reason why we all lived polygamy. He was the prophet that traveled across, he passed away and then they traveled across, the Mormons traveled across the plains to get to Utah. And then when Utah became a state, there's so much history on it, but we're going to be diving into a lot of it today. Please, like, if you guys don't understand things, maybe ask questions because I feel like there are some times where I say things and I kind of assume it's common knowledge, but I forget like not everyone was raised in these this weird religion, right? But this first question, it is gonna have some explaining to do. Because it's more of like for my own curiosity. You guys read the Doctrine and Covenants, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sure a lot of you guys already know this in the comments, but Joseph Smith had wrote the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants. He was very big on polygamy, and Doctrine and Covenants 132 was the verse that they always showed me in the order to try to prove that polygamy is what God's true law is, because Doctrine and Covenants 132 talks about the law of Abraham, and Abraham had like another wife, blah blah blah. That was my context of Doctrine and Covenants 132. Was Doctrine and Covenants 132 ever brought up in your upbringing?
Yeah, so let's start with you, Mom, and then I'll tell you my experience because things shifted over time as far as focus goes.
Well, and I think a lot of things have changed, even from what I understand, the Doctrine and Covenants. There was the Book of Mormon, Doctrine and Covenants, Pearl of Great Price.
Mhm.
And I don't know how it reads now compared to what it was back then, but it at my time it was there and talked about Abraham and all of his wives, and we were taught that that's what Joseph Smith lived, but then in my day we didn't live that. So
But, like,
I'm
was
not.
it a focus in your Sunday school lessons? Because I feel like in ours, it was a quick blip in one lesson out of the whole year. So they really tried not to focus on it because people were like, "Wait, wait, 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 wait. Hold
Yeah.
on, what?" So I wondered if it was a focus, if they talked about it more
It
in
was
your
more
time.
of a focus, I think, for me because we were taught that that's what we're going to live in the afterlife, but
Yeah,
just not in this life now because it's not needed anymore in my time in this life because
yeah.
now they didn't need husbands for wives, but that's why they did. We were told that that's why they did it. That
Wow. So
Joseph Smith
Yeah.
so
did it.
you were told that the reason why they stopped living polygamy was because, it's not in the times anymore. But you
It's
were
not
never
needed
told.
anymore.
Okay. Cuz
But yeah.
Utah couldn't become a state until they outlawed polygamy. They never talked
Right.
But
about that.
did they tell you that? Because they didn't tell me
No,
that.
they didn't tell us that. No, they just said we just don't live that law anymore because it's not needed anymore. But we will live it in the afterlife.
Well,
Yeah, so in fact, when I went to the official church website to see, like, okay, let me brush up on my Mormon facts because it's been a while since I left. And on all of their gospel topics essays, I have it up right now, and in all of the polygamy articles, it says that Wilford Woodruff, the prophet at the time, had a revelation from God that they had to stop practicing polygamy. And then if you dive deeper into other articles, they're like, well, it's because it became illegal or because they started to get prosecuted for it. And it even mentions on their website, which I guarantee you most Mormons don't know this, it mentions that they continued to do it in secret until 1904 or
Yeah.
1906. So even
I
though they were supposed to stop, they admit on the website that they continue to do it anyway, which to me says that wasn't a revelation from God because that's not how it works.
yeah.
When a revelation is given, you change everything and that's how it is. You can't just keep doing it because you feel like it. So to me, it's like it was very clear, even though they don't say it was because of the government thing, it was definitely that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting to see how it's evolved because I bring this up a lot because we would do these little tours of going down like Temple Square in downtown, and that's like very, there's a lot of history in like Brigham Young's house and stuff like that. They used to do the tours and be very honest and say this was, Brigham Young's first wife's room, Brigham Young's second wife's room. Now when they do the tours, they will lie and say this is his daughter's room, his other daughter's room. Like they blatantly
Oh,
Interesting.
wow.
lie about it. Yeah. It's
Wow.
that's the thing that bothers me so much with the history is that they seem to be covering up so much rather than just coming clean, which they do come clean on LDS.org about finally they say that Joseph Smith did marry a 14-year
Yeah.
old, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
it says that. It said on here when you get to the part about Joseph Smith and polygamy, it said, yes, he did have multiple wives. The language, it's almost like lawyers wrote it because it's plausible deniability and they word things in such a way so they can't really get in trouble for fact checking and all of that. But it did say that he married someone who the oldest I think was 50 and the youngest was just shy of her 15th birthday. So, like, they can't even say she was 14, but she
she was
was, and they
almost
have to
15.
put it just shy of her 15th birthday, and they even throw in there but it was very common for teenagers to marry at the time, which, as far as my understanding, that's a lie and not true because that's why men wanted to castrate him, and that's why they were like a whole mob attacked him. They brought a surgeon to castrate him because he was going after like young girls in the town. The doctor was like, I don't want to do this anymore, never mind. And so they settled for tarring and feathering, which is a faith based story that they would tell us and recreate and show us
Mhm.
to make us be like, he was so persecuted. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
But it's because he was going after people's kids.
Yep. Oh
And they
yeah.
leave out the castration part.
Yeah, I never heard that part actually till you just said that. But,
Yeah, yeah.
we were told in the order, like, one big example was if you know how Jesus Christ had to be killed and people back then wanted him killed? If Jesus Christ were here today, we would do the same thing, and that's what they did to Joseph Smith because the world could not handle the truth. So I
Right.
believed
The
it
martyr
as a kid.
complex.
Yeah, I was like, wow, that's very true. Like we just are so like evil as human beings. We destroyed God's true preacher and it had to live on and we're so lucky to be in this true kingdom. Of course, they don't say like all of the weird they don't say that, the first wife didn't even know he was living polygamy. But
Yeah, when I was digging into these articles because I'm like, okay, how much are they going to admit to? Because they kind of have to admit to things now because we have the internet and we have the resources and we can read the journals and we know what was going on back then. So they
Mhm,
can't lie so much anymore. They'll still kind of lie by omission during Sunday school as far as what they will actively teach. But if you look deep enough on their official website, they do admit to something. So they admit that Emma didn't know he was practicing it because it was like such a big deal and he had to be so careful because it was against the law, but God commanded it and he didn't do it until the angel came for the third time with a drawn flaming sword, and it was only until then that he was like, okay, God, fine, I will do it. I guess I'll take my nanny into the barn. And that's when Emma caught him having sex with her and she was like, what is this? And he's like, oh honey, I forgot to tell you, so
mhm.
I'm a polygamist. It's
He's
like,
like, it was such a
what?
secret that I couldn't even tell you.
So they mentioned Fanny on their website, and they say they don't say that they were caught in the barn having sex, but they did say he entered into a spiritual marriage or a celestial marriage with Fanny, who was their live-in help. So, yeah, they are very careful with the way that they word it, but they do
Yeah.
admit to some things.
Okay. Interesting. That it's mind-blowing that I mean, I feel like they do every year that goes by, they give a little bit more breadcrumbs.
Only for
Well,
people who look, though.
well, yeah, in your generation, you have to have answers. So because you guys are asking the questions. My
Mhm.
generation, you didn't ask questions.
Yeah.
And because there was no way to, discredit it or say, wait, whoa, what? There,
Yep.
everything that I read was books that were sanctioned by the church.
Yeah.
That's what we were told. You don't read other things. So you guys now in your generation, you can go research. So the church has to give you more answers.
But so I just saw someone asked if LDS people have full internet access. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
But they make it so you self-police. So, for example, I get a lot of active Mormons in my comments saying things like, "This is not true. Why are you spreading misinformation?" Da, 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 and I will link the actual church website and be like, "Here you go."
Mhm.
Because they don't think to really dive into their own church website, looking into these things, or maybe they do. Some people do, but most people just go off of what they're taught in Sunday school, which is lies by omission. So they just aren't aware of this stuff, plain and simple. They just
Yeah.
don't know that it happened. And even so, they will say over the pulpit, even the most recent general conferences, brothers and sisters, if you have questions, you shouldn't research, you should pray. It's like,
Mm.
wait, if I have a question about something, how is that gonna answer it? By divine revelation? Or if you get the revelation that, yeah, polygamy was practiced in a very sketchy way back in the day, and you tell them, God told me that it was wrong, they would say, no, you go back and you pray harder because that's not the right answer. But they don't encourage you to research. They literally say, don't. And so you have people who are just living in ignorance because they're just trusting the leaders and the prophets, and they're not willing to go there, because also if you go there, that means you might find something that you don't want to find, and
Mhm.
sometimes people just aren't ready for that.
Yeah.
Well, and if I might add, in my time, it was search, ponder, and pray. And so I had questions wondering how Emma felt. I always thought, I want to know how she feels because I couldn't live that. I
Emma
couldn't
is
do it.
his first wife.
His first wife. So I thought, I'm going to go research. So I would go buy books about Emma and read her story. Little did I know, all of those books were, again, in Deseret Book.
Written by
They
the
were
church.
written by the church
Yep.
leaders or any. And
Skewed
so,
perspective.
yes, so
Yep.
now if I were to research books on Emma, I would get the truth. But back
Yep.
then I didn't. So I thought, well, I guess she was okay with it. I don't know how she was okay with this.
And she wasn't.
She was not okay with it.
So I think there's only, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, in the comments, but I think there are only two places in the Book of Mormon, Pearl of Great Price, Doctrine and Covenants, where a female is talked about by name, and one of them is Emma, and it's in the Doctrine and Covenants where she is threatened with an angel with a flaming drawn sword. If she doesn't let Joseph Smith practice polygamy, she will be killed. And so she's literally threatened with her salvation and her physical life to practice polygamy. If that's not manipulation, I
Yeah,
don't
I
know
don't know
what is.
what
She
is.
wasn't okay with it. She didn't want to do it. In fact, when Joseph Smith was killed, she didn't even follow the church. She was like, nah, I'm set. You guys are doing weird stuff. I'm going to start my own break off of the Mormon church. And she didn't even follow the saints. So that's got to say something.
Yeah, and that's the frustrating thing is I kept hearing, when I would start questioning things, because I almost joined the LDS church because it was so familiar and
Yeah.
there was a sense of comfort in it.
Yeah.
But then when I was doing more research on Joseph Smith, then I was told by Mormons that they're told to only look at church
Church
like
approved resources.
approved, yeah. And I was like, okay. So very filtered sources of
Mhm.
information. But I have a few questions now on
Okay.
this topic of how you were saying that, Lisa, back in your time it was a little bit of a different time. I have heard I just want your take on this, if this was a thing or if you know anything about this. I heard that a bit ago, they used to do in the temple, in the LDS temple, the ritual consisted of blood atonement, like yeah? Did you actually witness that or
In my time, no, but my mother's time, yes. My mother, when she went through the temple, they did do the slitting of the throat and the
Oh,
cutting of the bowels or
Mhm.
yeah. And I remember asking, I'd heard about it. And so I asked my mom about that. And I said, how come they don't do that? And she goes, we did it in our time, but they took that out. So
yeah.
when I went through the temple, it was not there. And
Okay.
yeah,
And that
Yeah.
was the first thing that I found out that I asked her about when I was a teenager. That was my very first piece of anti-Mormon propaganda that I found online. And I was like, "Mom, what is this?" And I was laughing because I thought it was so hilariously false. Like, these trolls will come up with anything to just smash the Mormon church. And so when I asked her about it and
I
she
know.
turns white, I was like, "I'm sorry,
Ew.
what? What?" And she's like, "Well,
So
we don't do that anymore."
Yeah,
And
we
I
don't
was
do it
like,
anymore.
"Wait, what?"
why would we ever do that? Yeah. So for
Yeah.
anyone in the comments who doesn't know, like a lot of people are not from the LDS Church, so I understand that the blood atonement may be a new verbiage that you haven't
Yeah.
heard of. But if you research what the blood atonement is, it is basically, at least my understanding was always, it's better to be dead than to disobey these laws that you've been given. Like especially if you've
Yeah.
been shown the true laws and then to turn away from them, it's better to be dead. So that's why in the temple, when they were doing their, I don't know, endowments or whatever it is, priesthood, then that was kind of part of the ritual, like you're giving that promise. And some polygamous religions took it too far. If anyone looks up the LeBaron group,
LeBaron. We're
hmm
talking to them tomorrow. 2 of the girls,
oh,
Anna and her sister Celia, who were just in the documentary that was released yesterday. I think it's called Daughters of a Cult. It was just released. We're gonna be talking about them where they literally were going around murdering people. But I think it's even more intense than what you're saying, and tell me if this is right to you, Mom. What I have heard is that this meant I will slit my throat and cut out my bowels if I tell the secrets of the temple, if I reveal the secrets and ordinances of the temple. It was like, I will commit suicide before I tell anyone what goes on in here.
And that again was in my mom's day that
Yeah.
they actually did those signs. But in my day, I knew if I had questions about the temple ceremony or anything that happened during the temple, I could not talk about it outside of the temple, not even to my husband.
Yeah.
Oh, and so in the celestial room, I'd sit there and I'd lean over to him and I'd say, I don't understand this. They'd come over and go, "Shh, we
So you
don't
can't
talk."
talk in the temple and you can't talk about it when you leave the temple. So you're
Yeah.
just forced into this super weird culty thing that you can't talk about and no one's talking about it. And
yeah,
so everyone just goes along with it. And so you can see the position that she was in when I'm like, did this happen in the temple? And she's thinking of like, well, if I tell the secrets of the
I know. I'm
temple,
thinking,
and
I'm better off
I'm
dead.
dead.
so and
Better off
luckily,
dead.
she's like, "I don't wanna lie to my kid," and so she told me about it, but some people I imagine some parents would lie to their kids because that's part of the ordinances is that you don't talk about it. It's
Yeah,
so secretive, and they say it's not secret, it's sacred. Okay, but it's still really culty.
Well,
yeah,
and I was told that the more I go to the temple, the more the answers will come. And
Yeah,
I went constantly. And I would sit in there and say, just give me the answers, give me the answers. And I'm waiting and waiting
yeah.
and it wouldn't come. And I would go once or twice a week. I was really faithful with that. Very
wow. They're like,
faithful.
just keep
Yeah.
going and you'll
It'll
learn more,
come.
you'll get the answers, and you're just like, the more I
Yeah.
go, the more confused I
The
am.
more the more questions I
Yeah,
have.
because it's
Yeah.
just really weird. It's like a 3-hour ceremony that you do.
It's about an hour and a half. About by the time you go in, change your clothes, go through, sit, wait, go through the service, and then get out. It's about
Yeah.
they've shortened it a little bit. You
And
can
it's the same thing every time.
Yes, the
It's
same.
not like a progressive thing. Like you go and you get the same exact lesson. So you're not learning anything new. You're just repeating. It's just and that's what's so interesting is you see this in cults all the time. It's the repetition of something that desensitizes someone from something being weird and off. And the first time someone goes, all their red flags are going off and they're like, "What the hell?" And then
Yeah.
just keep going because the more you go, the more you're like, "Oh, I know this."
Oh, did we lose you? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay,
Go
okay.
ahead.
Yeah, someone FaceTimed me, someone who threw my shower today, sorry.
You're like,
I don't
"No!"
know what you I don't know what you heard, but I was basically saying that they have you keep going so that you think it's less weird because you're like, "Oh, I know this. Move the sash, put the veil over the face, do the handshake." There's, like, all this weird stuff. Stick your hand through a curtain and someone will pull you to the other side if you do the handshakes correctly. It's really weird, and so
It's
if
like
you
you're
have
trying your
someone
best. You're
doing
like,
it
"Wrong
no, really,
password."
there's, like do you know the handshakes when you do them with me? You've never
Um,
done this
They're like,
before.
"What's the
What
password?"
if
wait, wait, one is this, it's like
what's this?
this one.
Okay, there's
There's
one.
another one, this
Oh, you're going
one.
straight to outer
Uh-huh.
darkness for
Uh,
this. Okay, what
That's
else?
it. You're done.
Isn't
Wow.
there one like this?
when you hold
I
your
know there
hand,
was
and then
one where
you would touch like this. The officiator would touch like this, and
Okay.
then
What else? Is that it?
the ones. There's one more. There's
Isn't
one
there
more.
one like something with the
That's
thumbs?
where you do
This feels
this one,
really awkward
like
and she's
this.
my mom.
Like
you're
this.
like,
My fingers are like this. I don't. But it's interesting because when I would go with my grandmother, I would sit with her, and again, it became repetition. And I would just sit there, and I'd be like, "Okay, what's going to come next? What do I need to remember?" And I'd look at over her, and my grandma sound asleep. And then she knew exactly. It was almost like she'd wake up just in time to stand up and switch the sash and
Yeah.
do the
It's
handshake.
very
And
interactive.
yeah,
And if you don't know something, you can't progress into the celestial room. You have to ask for someone to give you the answer, right? Like if you
well,
forget your temple name
yeah.
because they reassign you a new name, you have to ask someone. Like it's kind of from what I've heard from people who've done it, it's kind of embarrassing because there's so much to remember and that's why they tell you to keep going. So you're desensitized to the whole thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's what it is.
it's shame.
And I'm sure
It's shameful.
they word it as like if you keep going, you'll feel the spirit more and
Yeah.
but it's really just they're desensitizing you. You know,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
have one more question. I know the audio has been really weird in this video, but I really think that we should do another one of these when I have my studio all put together so that it can be
Okay.
a lot easier to hear. But thank you everyone for being here. The last question I really want to just dive into is we were talking about when we did our I don't remember if it was on your channel or my channel, but we did our little podcast episode and we talked about how they taught you guys that you become gods in the after,
Yeah.
world. I guess I have a question for both of you. If you both were raised with the same teachings and if they had Bible verses on like look this or not Bible verses, but maybe even something in the Doctrine and Covenants that said, see, this is where we know that we're gonna be a God in the afterlife.
I think it's the book of Abraham.
Is it?
I'm almost
I
positive it's the book of Abraham that talks about the afterlife, and that's the one that was debunked that he translated from an Egyptian scroll that from a mummy that he bought.
Well, that's the killing of the son. We had to go up and
Yeah, but
kill
I
the
think
son of
that's
his.
where they reveal the afterlife and the levels of heaven is the book of Abraham. I could be wrong.
I'm not sure, and I'm sure many of your viewers would know that. I just remember being taught that I will become a goddess, and my husband, if he lives righteously, he will become a god, and we will have our own worlds.
Mhm.
And that was just taught to us.
I
But
just
I can't
googled it to see.
quote scripture on that because I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm sure one of your viewers would know that.
Yeah, I thought it was the book of Abraham, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. So you both were taught then that you can get it in the celestial kingdom only to be God over your own world.
Yeah, oh yeah, you
Yeah.
have to be in the celestial kingdom. And in order to be in the celestial kingdom, you have to follow all the rules here on earth as far as attending all your meetings, the tithing,
Word
living
of
the word of
wisdom.
wisdom. You had to do all these things. And that's why you'd go into the bishop before you would go to the temple to get your recommend.
The worthiness interview.
You would have to go through an interview in order to go to the temple. To
Yeah.
have what I call the golden ticket.
Oh, I definitely remember the whole lesson because it stuck with me because they said something that I didn't like, and me as a 12-year-old was really upset about it because they taught about getting our own planets, and they said if you make it to the celestial kingdom, which none of this actually makes sense because if you're in the celestial kingdom, then you're not on your own planet. Whatever, you get your own planet, and you and your husband, you have to be married in the temple, and he has to be worthy because only a worthy priesthood holder can pull you after you do the secret handshakes through the veil into heaven.
Yeah.
And once you get there, it's your job to be eternally pregnant and populate this new planet with spirit babies, just like our God did, and you become God. And I remember saying in my lesson, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have my own planet. I can't wait to make the sky pink," because I'm a kid.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, no, 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 you can't do that." And I was like, "I'm sorry, what do you mean? I'm God. Or I'm a
Yeah.
goddess. I can do whatever I want." And they're like, "No, you have to follow the laws of science." I don't know where that person got it from. I don't know why they said that, but it stuck with me. And that's why I remember that they taught that, because recently they reeled it back. And it was a whole thing in the Mormon, ex-Mormon communities, because they said, "No, no, we never said that you could become a god." And everyone was like, "That was the only cool part about Mormonism, and you're pretending that it never happened." Because
Wow.
people are like, "That's really blasphemous," which it is if you want to be like an actual Christian. But anyway, they definitely taught that.
Yeah, there was whole, like, films that they made, like, cartoons about it, and then they're just kinda acting like, "No." Wait, what?
We didn't do that. They just love gaslighting their members. They reel things back and then they're like, "I don't know what you're talking about."
Yeah, my gosh. Okay, last one, because this made me think of this last question, because I always, when I was thinking of joining the LDS church, and then I was like, you know what, it's kind of too culty for me, because yes, I was drawn to it because it was less, it almost felt like less of the fry. I was coming from a frying pan into less of a frying pan, but then coming to find out, like, oh, it's still a frying pan. Um, they started to talk about a baptism for the dead. And I remember joking with my adopted family because they're LDS, and I was like, well, if you guys are right, just do a baptism for the dead for me. So
Oh my
my
gosh.
question is, though, I could not technically make it to the celestial kingdom. And for anyone who doesn't know, baptism for the dead in the LDS culture is when someone like me, who has not, I have no religion, I've never joined the LDS church, I'm gonna pass away, and I never got the chance to be accepted in that world. So an LDS person could go to the temple and baptize themselves, but in my name, like, I baptize you,
A
Emmanuel,
proxy.
Father, Son, Holy Ghost, whatever. And then I have the opportunity in the afterlife, I don't know, purgatory, wherever I'm hanging out in the afterlife, to accept that baptism and then be. But does that mean I don't get to have this chance to go to the celestial kingdom? Where am I ranked?
Okay, well, from my understanding of their complicated rules, which are changing all the time, you won't get that opportunity because you knew Mormonism and you turned away, so you're going to outer darkness with us.
Oh, so they wouldn't do a baptism for the dead for me then.
I don't
I
think
understood
so.
that you would have the opportunity to raise up slowly
In the
in
afterlife,
the
if
afterlife
you messed up.
if you messed up.
Unless you go to outer darkness, though. They
Well, if
said
you go to
if you go
outer
to outer
darkness,
darkness, it's like end of the road for you. But also, they taught us that you can't, like, there's three kingdoms: celestial, terrestrial, telestial. And they told me, at least, that once you're assigned a kingdom, you can't move up.
no, you can't move up. People can come down and visit,
Yeah.
but you can't move up. But you can accept the church, but it would take you. I mean, from what I've
Millennia.
forever. I mean, it would take a long time to get to that point.
It's all made up.
I don't know. It didn't. Again, it didn't make sense. I just was so fearful. I thought I've got to make it to the celestial. I didn't question anything. I
Mhm.
just
I wasn't
okay.
even afraid. I was just an A+ student, and I was like, "Well, obviously, I'm gonna make it to the celestial kingdom because I do my homework." Like, I'm
Yep.
gonna be a good girl.
You're like, I don't have to work.
But yeah, I think the case is there's like some sort of middle ground where people who have never heard of the gospel go, and those are the ones who get hopefully baptized on earth so that they have the opportunity to accept the gospel. And if they do, then they get assigned a kingdom. I don't know. None of it really makes sense, but I was told the fear came in for me when I was told, well, because you know
Yes.
Mormonism and because you've been baptized, if you turn away, it's game over. Like,
Yeah.
if you were to die tomorrow after turning away from the church, you are out of here. Like, you're not even going to a place where Hitler goes. He's going to the lowest level of heaven. You're going to outer darkness. And we did an object lesson in friggin' Young Women's together where they took us into a blacked out room and they were like, "Do you want this for eternity?" And we're like, "No, we don't." It was like to scare us into being good kids or something.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
similar to what I was raised into.
No.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fear and
Yeah.
shame was the core to get these people to be so obedient, right?
Mhm.
Wow. It's crazy how many similarities. I feel like I have so many more questions, but I want to save them. Do you think it could be possible to do another live once I have my studio together with my microphones, my lighting, and everything?
Yeah, we could do, like, an actual in-feed video if you wanna do that, and we can, because for whatever reason, folks who were joining the live, we were trying to connect with all of our gear, and YouTube didn't allow it because it was created on a specific program or something, so that's why we're on a cell phone with no
Yep.
microphones and the lighting's weird. But, yeah, so if we did, like, a regular video, I think that would be best, and we can have all the gear set up, and
Yep.
everything will look peachy.
Yeah. That's the plan. I'll save the rest of these juicy questions for next time.
Okay, perfect.
But thank you so much for joining me. It was so good to see you guys.
You too. Thanks for having us.
Yes, and thank you everyone else for joining. I know I didn't really like keep track of the comments, but I really appreciate you guys for always being so kind in the comment section. And was there anything else you guys wanted to add before we close for prayer?
Any last words? Follow or subscribe to Amanda and her channel, like this video, leave those comments. Check out the video that we did on our channel like 30 minutes
Yes.
ago, where we talk all about the harmful effects of polygamy being in mainstream media with sister wives. And yeah, we have lots of great videos with Amanda. I think the last live we did together has over 500,000 views on our page at this point.
Oh, nice.
So we have a playlist. We have a playlist just for Amanda. Of course we do.
Ooh.
Jonathan made a playlist just with you, so
Oh.
you guys can go check that out. But yeah, thanks for joining us, everybody.
Yes, and I will leave all of the stuff that we just talked about, the videos, in the description box down below after we close out of this. But thank you guys all for joining, and I will see you guys tomorrow on Sunday. See you guys.
All right, bye.
Bye.